Hello and welcome to a very special podcast. I'm Nick, better known as Neptune, and joining me today is the Batman.
Hello.
Stars Tyrant.
Hello.
Romby.
Hello.
And George Trevor.
Hello, hi.
Well, today, the 18th of January 2022, it is our 10th anniversary. That's right, 18th of January 2012, episode 0, our pilot episode, was first released to the wider world on the old website. And what a better time to release such a venture. 2012 was an action-packed and pivotal year for Resident Evil with Revelations, Operation Raccoon City, Damnation, and then towards the end of the year, Resident Evil 6, all being released within a 12-month window. These are titles that had a huge impact on the franchise, both good and bad. We took up the mantle of the RPD Dispatch, which was probably the first podcast that was Resident Evil themed from the old The Horror is Alive website. We had no idea that it would continue onwards for such a long time. And yet here we are, 10 years older, 10 years wiser. Leave you to decide that. But to celebrate our 10 years, as you probably guessed from the name of the podcast, we are doing a best bits. Our next actual podcast is out very shortly, so please bear with us. And that's our review of Welcome to Raccoon City. And then after that, we're actually doing a very special anniversary podcast where we're going to be looking back on the last 10 years of Biohazard and the last 10 years of Rep. So it's going to kind of be a generational discussion on both how the series has evolved in the last 10 years, because I think everyone would agree it really has changed quite beyond recognition as to what we experienced in 2012 to where it is now. Or is it actually going back to where it was? That's the kind of discussion we're going to be having, looking back on some of the old games very briefly as well. And of course, celebrating our 10 years and how we've evolved as a podcast during that time. But as I say, right now we have a very special treat for all our listeners as we present a best bits of the Resident Evil podcast from the last 10 years. We've compiled some of our favourite moments and mishaps, there's been a few, as well as some of the favourite moments that the fans have helped us out with. In our Discord, for example, we put across the request and people have been sending us in their favourite moments and they've been put together. It has been a listening pleasure stitching it all together, digging back into the archives and finding some of these moments as well. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to give a big shout out and thanks to one of our patrons, Super Dome Man, who helped compile a lot of these clips for us. It really helped during a very busy time of the year. So I just want to say that before we start the clips, I just wanted to hand over to everyone just to say a few words.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as someone who wasn't here from the beginning, I sort of, not to go tread down an old road again, but I sort of famously begged to be on the Dead Aim one, came back for the RE5 one, was offered an invite to join the team. So there's always been, from my point of view, and people will tell me it's nonsense, but there always has been a certain degree of imposter syndrome being part of this team. Because you weren't there at the beginning, and it's been so much fun. And honestly, we're like old veterans now, just sort of dragging ourselves along these days. It feels, doesn't it, guys? At times, we've all been here since the sort of late 90s. Certainly, have an online presence since the early 2000s in many cases, and to still sort of be here in 2022 celebrating the best project I've ever had the honour to be part of, to do with Resident Evil and Biohazard. With you guys, it's been a joy, and a huge thanks to all the listeners who continue to turn up every time we drop an episode, every time we show our faces on the Discord. You've just made it such a joy, and that's why the enthusiasm's still there. It's because of what you give us, the encouragement you spur us on. So, who knows where the next 10 years is going to go. So, just thanks very much. Enjoy the best bits.
I'm the other person who joined late, I guess, in this scheme of things. I think I was a couple of episodes after Sean is on his first guest appearance. I made my first guest appearance. I think it was about July, August of 2012, so a little bit after the podcast started. Obviously, I came back a couple of times, and then it was very interesting when you guys decided to return from a self-inflicted, self-interred gap where you thought you'd done enough after 24 episodes, I think it was.
That's right, yeah.
That I was asked back to join you and join you on a more permanent basis, and it's been a blast. I honestly can't believe. I mean, I think that alone's been about 7 years, maybe 8 in of itself. I can't believe how fast that's gone as well. It's crazy. I was still overseas when rejoined you for recording. Quite fondly remember being mocked for having traffic noise at my window while I was sitting in a very, very, very hot room in Budapest for a couple of episodes. And I was in London for that before that as well for a couple of things. So it was kind of a surreal feeling to go, oh yeah, I'm on this podcast and these guys are in the same country. And then of course I came back to New Zealand and I've been halfway around the world doing this, as I'm always reminded talking about this sort of content at about 7 o'clock in the morning over here while you guys are there in the evenings. So much to Paul's amusement when he realised, well, why would you talk about it at 7 in the morning? But no, it's been a blast, and I hope it continues for many more years. It's always good just talking about the franchise and all the cool stuff that's going on, and trying to be as funny and open and optimistic and pessimistic and everything comes with it with you guys, especially because you are great people to talk to and you're great friends, and it's always an enjoyable time. I thank you all, and to all the people listening who've supported it. I honestly can't believe there's so many people that listen to our little rambles and long rambles every time we drop a podcast, but every time we put something new out there's always such great response, and I'm always very happy to hear and see everything that comes back, and it reminds me of my days running the website as well, and seeing that sort of reaction and knowing that there are really positive fan bases out there, and it's really good to be able to help support them and do stuff that they're interested in. So thank you. Enjoy the best bits, and hopefully we'll be here for another 10 years.
Today that we've been going for 10 years. Wow, it's only felt like about 25. I can remember all those years ago, we were also young and naive. We even thought Resident Evil 5 was quite good. I've certainly been educated myself sharing this platform. I'm very privileged to share this platform with some very, very knowledgeable fans, and I hope we've made you laugh. I hope you've learned something. We wouldn't be here without any of the fans that have been listening to the show, have been supporting us. We've got this amazing Discord server that's grown with just such a wonderful community. People that were following us from the very, very start, thank you so much. That was born out of the website that we're all associated with. And now, of course, we've got the gleaming new Resident Evil podcast website that I'm sure you've all been visiting. But thank you very, very much to everyone that's been supporting us over the last 10 years. I've been delighted and very, very privileged to be part of it. And now I think you're going to be listening to some best bits. I would like to put the disclaimer that there was no cheating going on during the podcast. I'm sure some of the clips that Neptune has cobbled together to make it sound and look as if I was, don't believe it. It's all in editing. No cheating did occur during the making of our quiz. Okay, from me and all the boys from NASA, thank you so much.
Well, I suppose the biggest thing for me about this podcast reaching 10 years old is that I'm incredibly proud that it's lasted this long and that people still seem to really like it. And it's been a privilege to record it with all of you guys. I remember in the early days, it was very, very raw. It was very much trial and error. And I don't think I could listen to the first 5 or 6 episodes again. I think they were that bad. But when we had Sean on, I think it gave us something we really needed at the time. And that improved the quality a hell of a lot. And I know we originally planned not to outstay our welcome, and we ended it after episode 24, which featured a special interview with DC Douglas, which, the voice actor interviews weren't that common, around that time. They very much are now, but it was a bit of a coup for us to get DC at the time, so that was good. I don't think we had any real plans to come back, but we kept getting messages from people asking if we would. So, yeah, it was pretty much by popular demand. We did end up coming back, and of course we added Rob as a full-time member, which I think gave us that extra touch of class that really elevated us, because Rob was such an infamous name in the community. And from there, I think our second run from 2015 onwards, when we relaunched with the remake HD episode, I think it was, has been really enjoyable. We've had some really, really solid discussions, and then we sort of started to expand a little bit with launching Podbean and Discord, and then eventually the website itself. So I'm really, really proud of the work we've done, because I know compared to other content creators, we don't have as much free time, and we can't produce stuff as regularly as other people. So I'm very proud that it's still going. I'm immensely grateful to everyone who listens and supports us, because that's really the motivation to keep going, because it does get harder as the years go on. But yeah, just immensely proud that we're still here after 10 years, and I hope we can keep going for some time. Yeah, so just want to say thank you to everyone else, and also thanks to you guys, because it's been an absolute privilege doing this with you. So cheers.
I echo everyone's sentiments, and there we go. So grab some popcorn, take a seat, and enjoy the best bits of the last 10 years. of the Resident Evil podcast. Previously on the
Resident Evil podcast.
Biohazard 1 genuinely scared the shit out of me.
You also have to give Richard Aiken mouth to mouth, don't you? They're just fan-written books, then. They're bollocks.
Let's say, George, you mentioned Paul Anderson there. Can you not swear, please?
Oh shit! I've just realised that if Mr. Spencer isn't here, does that mean he's going to get another expert answering his question?
Only you could switch the topic of conversation from Resident Evil 6, which is 3 weeks away, to confidential reports.
I really don't like being told to deposit things in security boxes.
Keep the faith. It will get better. This is the low point. It's only up from here.
Siege mode.
Oh, Siege and what's the other one? No Mercy.
No Mercy. Yeah.
They're all starting to sound like WWF pay-per-views, aren't they? Vincent, it's your mother. Stop doing those terrible podcasts and just come home.
The strange thing is, if you look at him, he actually looks younger in the 70s than he does now.
We should. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. He is younger in the 70s. Of course, he's gonna look younger. I think that's called aging. Even the bright spark of Revelations is a glimmer, and otherwise sea of shite.
Why has this tyrant got a pair of underpants on?
Released back in, got me off guard now, 2011 and
2008.
Was it? Was it?
Yeah. 2008.
No.
Only 3 years out. Are you sure you're not sitting here?
Shit, a brick.
Time's gone very quickly since then, Nick.
Nick's gone and researched one of these Precious Anderson films.
You wait for the moment when the new character's introduced and it was, my name's Tyler, I survived Raccoon City. You know, you'll come crying back.
2015 has got off to a good start. It's a year of healing.
Do you think we've finally left all the Wesker stuff behind now?
No.
Possible scenario is this Final Fantasy VII remake might open a floodgate in Capcom to do 2 and 3.
Oh
No.
I sound quite posh. I'm not posh. I sound quite posh. So I say castle.
Too many A's in that. Too many A's.
This quiz is the umbrella core of our podcast. It's fucking ruined.
Who the fuck's Kevin Ford?
It just seems fashionable to hate this game, and it's really, really, really not that bad.
Biohazard 3 horror in the horny tentacle mansion.
Is it canon?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Gotta be more canon than Umbrella Corps.
So I'm really intrigued to start with the negatives.
How British? And I'm thinking, right, they're called moulded, but the family's called bakers. What you bake is bread. What grows on bread, mould. So maybe they're bread monsters. But Ori 7 is the game that has brought me back into the series.
There's absolutely no reason whatsoever why this guy at the end does have to be Crypt.
Yeah.
You know? For the exact same reason the corporation doesn't have to be Umbrella.
I think if anybody looks at 7 and says it's not Resident Evil, needs to seriously sit down and rewatch Vendetta.
The so-called tank controls were very tanky. I decide that I'll let all my inhibitions go and dress up as Regina from Dino Crisis.
What have we done to upset Capcom that much?
We made this podcast. I'm still totally keen for hats on all enemies. I really am.
How far do you think this remake train can run?
I have a PAL copy of the original, and someone's written in the back in the notes just 2 words. It just says "Be safe."
Oh, that's lovely. Just watch the opening clip of 7 where Mia goes, hello, to the camera.
How does she go, Nick?
Hello. The official podcast view on its canon is it's not canon until it is, or not.
I feel like we're like the top tier of Resident Evil streaming. Ambitious but rubbish.
I've echoed John's thoughts in the past that I think the remake of this game is going to be a very different game to the game that we've been played collectively here.
Back in my day, the PC came on the disc!
That should they ever marry, then she will actually become Jill Sandwich.
Oh,
So the enemies in Code Veronica are like probably consistently the most frustrating, I think, of the franchise.
And the bats as well. You know, you've got bats. You've never had bats before.
Nick, you've got bats. Nick, you've got bats.
These remakes, man, they do me in. I tell you.
Outbreak.
I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not going to be showing my daughter Rachel Foley artwork.
I won't show a woman with her boobs hanging out, but I will show a grotesque bloated dead man. That's a great idea. Yeah, online games don't have Nick mode.
The waitresses at the Biohazard Cafe would dance to the Spice Girls.
Well, there's the takeaway from this podcast.
File referenced HCF, and you're just like, whoa, holy crap, I haven't seen that in years. Why did you decide to put that back in then?
This conversation literally hurts me.
I feel as though Ori 4 is just one of those games that was the product of a Faustian deal that was made between Shinji Mikami and some greater power.
As much as you can put on rose-tinted glasses, I just don't think modern players want to play capital games anymore.
I think I've had more jump scares in this game than I've ever had in any of Resident Evils.
People will come away from this game with a smile on their face. They would have enjoyed it. Best storyline in a game since Resident Evil 5.
Despite ignoring the large word dead written right next to his name, that fucking file is haunting my dreams.
When the team calls Chris out on it, he kind of doesn't really have an excuse, as if the writers themselves couldn't come up with a good reason for it. Who tipped off Miranda about Rose and Mia? Do you have an answer for that? Because it doesn't get addressed in the game. Do you know what the plan for that was?
I don't have an answer I can tell you. There's a new CG production coming up. I mean, if Leon's not in it, I would be very surprised.
Basically, what you're saying is if they wanted Village to succeed, they needed Leon rather than Chris.
Probably, yeah.
This canonicity that we nitpick so brutally in the West is ultimately much more of a sort of placid thing for them.
We just read into these things far too much.
Which is ironic, because I know we've been sitting here for the last few hours reading far too much into all this stuff. But, that's what we're here for.
Resident Evil Podcast.
Right, excuse the accent.
Now there we go.
What are you doing now?
No.
Oh no.
No, I won't. No, put me off now. I won't try it again.
No, you crack on.
Welcome to the podcast, son. Welcome to episode 30.
Was that it? Was that it?
I know.
Jesus.
You've been practicing that all week.
I know.
He's been driving to and from work, constantly saying it.
Yeah.
Meeting new people on the street, going, "Welcome to the podcast, son."
Hello and welcome to episode 1, episode 25, episode 52, episode 71 of the Resident Evil podcast, where our staff members regularly hit the bottle after witnessing a massacre of their team, illegally supplying BOWs to the Eastern Slav Republic in order to make a cheeky offer to purchase Greece. Leading the way in changing the worldview on Biohazard, we've sent Mr. Spencer to talk at the UN. How dare we? Acrobatically kicking zombies since 2012 whilst trying to cover up all the insidious activities of the US government. I'm Nick, better known as Neptune, BOW of the Deep Blue Sea. Let's see who's joining us today. Once a famous protector of Gotham, now a protector of the law. Some say he was born in the Lazarus Pit, whereas we all know he was born down pit. Less Dark Knight, more Where Were You Last Night? It's Batman.
Quality.
Where did that come from?
He's really out of the blue.
Have you been following me?
He's been recovering after just 1 week of playing Umbrella Corps.
He has a 100% accuracy record with the rocket launcher. He has more rants than Ben Shapiro on a university campus. It stars Tyrant.
Thank you. Hello.
He predicted the movie trailer release to the day. His country is virus-free, but our tests show that he's still full of it. Knowledge, that is.
You can follow him on the local New Zealand crime watch. It's Romby.
Wow, thanks.
His name is plastered all over some of the most iconic locations in Biohazard. To recreate that authentic mansion experience when he visits his basement, his prisoner trombone player is right on cue.
He likes his men like he likes his survival horror. Alone and in the dark. It's George Trevor.
Fuck, I knew I was going to regret saying that. It's been taken completely out of context, and the bit I added at the end that sounds very heterosexual has also conveniently been removed as well.
Dining on liberal tears and the flesh of his deceased competitors, and a champagne socialist if I ever did see one. It's Mr. Spencer.
I resent
That's true.
that
The
remark.
truth hurts.
That's awful. I am no champagne socialist.
So we'll crack on straight with the news. Biohazard Mahara Desire, which has been released, or at least some of the comics in Japan. The Biohazard Mahara Desire, thankfully, is going to be professionally translated and released into 10 countries of the 8th of June, but not England, not America. Volume 3 of Mahara Desire has been made available in several European territories. That was available from the 7th of May, so that's how long ago? Well, it's over a month ago now, isn't it? Nearly 2 months. Volume 4 was released on May the 8th, and the story is now up to 34 chapters. Biohazard Mahara Desire may have concluded, or has concluded, after a staggering 38 issues.
God.
And we can finally look forward to Tome 4 being localised into French. So I'm sure that's on your shopping list. Volume 5 of Mahara Desire has been released in Japan. This feels it's gone on for quite a long time, Mahara Desire. Considering it was supposed to be a prequel to RE6, we are now 1 year after release. But never mind. Mahara Desire is finally available in English. I think if we go back to episode 1, we announce Mahara Desire.
What a complete load of nonsense it was in the end as well, wasn't it? What a complete and utter waste of time.
It's still
from
not
inception
finished.
to release.
Not finished. Volume 1 is out now in English. The remaining 4 volumes released now between now and July. Mahara Desire news. Volume 5 is to be released in English in August.
Oh, I've still got 2 weeks to make it an exclusive. I've got an English translation here. I've just been so lazy about photoshopping it back on because it's Mahara Desire. I've got no desire to bloody do it.
When there has been like Resident Evil 10 that's finally finished off the series storyline and we're doing the last ever podcast, I genuinely think this will be unfinished. This news feed of this fucking comic.
Welcome to the Raccoon City Police Department. How can I help you?
Hi, Susanna Taylor. I have a 2 o'clock appointment with Chief Brian Irons.
Okay, yes, I can see this in the diary. You see that room up there? That's the Chief Secretary's waiting room. Head up there and she'll sign you in.
Fantastic. Many thanks. Yes, how do I get up there?
Oh, yeah, directions. Go through that first door in the main hall into a waiting room. Ignore anyone waiting there and just walk through the other door on the next. Continue along that door. Watch out for drips from the ceiling. Go past a set of double doors until you get to the end of the corridor. Go through that door and take a left and proceed to walk up the stairs 1 level. You getting this?
Yes, up the stairs. First floor.
Carry on down this corridor past the oddly colored statues and the priceless ruby it holds without security. Go through the next door and down that corridor. You will then need to enter the STARS office.
The STARS office? Surely I'm not authorized to enter that part of the building.
It's okay. No one's there. They're all dead. Don't inspect the main desk though. You will find in the STARS office room a unicorn medal. Pick that up and then bring it back to the main hall.
What?
With the unicorn medal, place it in the relief over there. The statue will move slightly and the spade key will be revealed in the bucket of water. Take the...
Wait, why do I need to do this? Can't I just go and get the key now? I could probably reach it if it stood on the edge. If not, I'm sure you have a copy of the unicorn medal behind the desk that I can use.
Clearly, you are not a resident of Raccoon City. This is not how it works. With the spade key, walk back the entire route you just took and you can then unlock the door at the end of the corridor.
Why is it locked?
Well, we can't just have any Tom, Dick, or Harry snooping around. This is a police precinct, madam.
You have literally just told me to go into the elite police branch's office and find a hidden medal. This makes no...
In this new corridor, take the only door available and you're then in our library.
Yeah, of course I am.
Stay on the same level and exit the library and you will be on the balcony above. Walk around and enter into the waiting room. Simple.
Incredible. Thank you. And when I finish my meeting, do I have to conquer this entire building again?
No, don't be silly. Head back over the balcony and you can use our 15-foot emergency evacuation ladder. Perfectly safe.
I have to say this is absolutely ridiculous. I will be speaking with the chief about this, mark my words. Now, before I go, can you point me in the direction of the nearest bathroom? For the love of...
I just want to ruin the entire game for all of you. When someone says something or you see something in a completely different picture, you can never see that same picture ever again because someone's pointed out a fault with it and you're always drawn to that fault or something like that. Next time you play the game in the main hall, go up to the banister, the kind of balcony that connects both sides, which goes over the stairs, and the back of Resident Evil box always says, will you discover the source of the Resident Evil or something? And I used to, before I completed the game, I thought perhaps the house itself is actually alive or something like that. And when you stand in that middle of that balcony and look down, and the camera angle kind of looks down on the hall as well, and you can see the two archways underneath, and it looks like a face.
Cyril Snare.
Not Cyril Snare, no, but you've got the two archways.
He built the mansion.
It's a black eye, and it looks like a face, and an evil-looking face, and I was genuinely convinced that the final boss would be a giant...
An archway.
I think you've got mental problems. Because you've seen scary faces in inanimate objects.
You should apply for umbrella.
Yeah, they fit right in.
So, sorry, I skipped a bit and said, yes, we now see the implied reason as to why there's a vendetta with what can only be described as the world's worst wedding. Being hit by a drone can't be the best way to tell the kids. I found that shot where they show the explosion, it's really, really wide. It plays comically. Did anyone else feel that? Like, instead of it being really visceral and close, you've got this wide shot and all of a sudden it's just like...
Oh, it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious.
And I was like, it reminds me of an old cartoon.
It complete the tone is literally all over the fucking place. It just has no idea what it wants to be at all, this movie.
And in the book, doesn't it actually show Diego saving Glenn?
Yes.
And that's why he's also pissed off, because he wanted him to save Sarah.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
That would have been a bit more exposition. That's so much better. Why is that not in the movie? Instead, he just wakes up under a pile of rubble with the dead hand attached to his hand.
I've actually got it playing in silent and on another screen, and it's just comical. That bit you just mentioned, the distant shot of the...
Yes,
you're right. It's hilarious.
I just paused it. I went, okay, I see what you were trying to do there, but what you just did was unintentional gold.
It's just Wile E. Coyote blowing himself up.
and
nice thing, John.
Screaming is fucking horrifically bad.
So I suppose the question is, do we know
where this drone came from?
It's mentioned in the novel again.
I mean, I don't like to bring up the live action, but we could get inevitably another announcement.
I'm pretty sure they already.
I'm pretty today.
Yeah, they announced that they were making 2 more after.
Oh yeah, 6 and 7 has been announced today.
Has it really?
And a possible reboot.
It needs to die.
Yeah, it does. Mila Jovovich got nominated for a Razzie today as well.
Yeah, worst actress.
Excellent. For what film? Retribution?
Yes.
For all of them, hopefully.
I haven't seen Retribution yet. So
Why do you like it? Why do you like them, Nick? They're utter shit.
I like
even if they're not Resident Evil, they're still shit films.
I like
What is wrong with you?
Giggle. I did have a good giggle at Sally Carhill being painfully dubbed over the Ada actress. in the movie. I didn't realise they'd done that, and it's a bad dub.
All 5 of them are just poor films.
Oh, I like the first one.
Yeah, I never really got how people like them, even
The
as
first one's
just...
bollocks. It's just a cheap Aliens clone with no character development whatsoever. It's shit.
I think the only thing people remember in the first one is the laser scene. That's it. That's
And
the
that-
only really memorable scene.
I think we should do an entire podcast that's like an hour of John just ranting about the films. It's so easy to listen to his voice.
None of these areas are ready yet, but the game will launch on January 25th with the basic tour of the OPD that you're about to take, and then the other environments like the sewers and the laboratory will be patched in 6 to 12 days after that. Absolutely spectacular designs, spared no expense.
And we can charge anything we want. $2,000 a copy? $10,000? And the fans will pay it. And then there's the merchandise.
This remake was not built to cater only for the die-hard fans. Every gamer in the world has the right to enjoy Resident Evil 2.
Sure, they will. We'll have a coupon day or something.
Gee, the lack of humility before the original game that's being displayed here staggers me.
I think things are a little different than you and I have feared.
I know, they're a lot worse.
Now, wait a second. We haven't seen the full game yet. There's no reason.
Well, let him talk. I want to hear every viewpoint.
Don't you see the danger inherent in what you're doing here? Remaking a classic is one of the most devastating and awesome powers in this industry, and you wield it like a kid who's found his dad's gun.
It's hardly appropriate to start.
If I may, I'll tell you what the problem with what you're making here. It didn't require any discipline to achieve it. You know, you saw the fan-made remakes, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of loyal fans and modders to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it, slapped a bunch of pre-order incentives, and now you're selling it. You're selling it.
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our developers have done things which nobody has ever done before.
Yeah, but your developers were so preoccupied over whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid is on the verge of extinction. If I created a whole remake of the original Metal Gear Solid and saved the franchise, you wouldn't have anything to say.
No, hold on. This isn't some series that was destroyed by corporate meddling or internal dispute. Metal Gear Solid had its shot, and Konami selected it for extinction.
I don't understand this Luddite attitude, especially from such a strong fan of Resident Evil. How can we stand in the light of nostalgia and not act?
Oh, what's so great about nostalgia? It's a misleading, tainted act that destroys what it remembers. What you call nostalgia, I call a rape of the original game.
The question is, how can you know anything about a classic that's over 2 decades old? And therefore, how can you assume that you know what fans want? You use the over-the-shoulder viewpoint. I mean, you picked that because it looks good, but the original game was made in a time where fixed camera angles and tank controls were prevalent, and old-school fans of that will lash out, violently if necessary.
Neptune, if there's just one person here who can appreciate what we're trying to do.
The industry has changed so radically, and we're all running to catch up. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look, the original game and this remake. 2 games separated by 20 years of development, just thrown into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea of what to expect?
I'm going to start off by saying, so I was playing Resident Evil 6, and I have to say, for the first time since remake, I did feel that I was back at home with survival horror. All the elements of the tense suspense, the creepy atmosphere are all there. And what's more Resident Evil than playing with Chris Redfield, driving around China in a Jeep, chasing a Mazda MX-5, shooting a machine gun, wielding BOWs. Oh, just like the good old days. Oh dear, absolutely shocking. I didn't like the controls, I didn't like the cover system, I didn't like the HUD, I didn't like the inventory, I didn't like the healing options, I didn't like the graphics, I didn't like the Huavo, I didn't like the quick time events, I didn't like Simmons, I didn't like Chris's action, I didn't like what they did to Pierce, I didn't like Jake's scenario, I didn't like Carla, I didn't like the massive BOWs, and I still don't like Cucumber.
Batman, any comments on G4, G3?
Well, I just thought I was on drugs when he started running around the buildings. When he jumped... Like, are we going to get some sort of reimagining of the clock tower fight? And then he just sort of jumped onto the side of the building and started doing circles. I was like, what the fuck's going on here?
Well, I think that's a nice boat, the Queen Zenobia. Because no one thought about that. No one looked at it and gone, "That's a nice cruise ship."
Let's hope the captain doesn't drive too close to. That's going to be a dated joke, though.
Oh, you mean that cruise ship?
I do mean the Italian cruise ship, yeah.
Yeah, that cruise ship that sunk off the coast of Italy. Interesting, that, isn't it? You think that's it's a Capcom viral marketing stunt?
They sunk an entire cruise ship to promote one game.
Yes,
I'm buying that.
So you're starting episode 2 with an apology then, John?
To the family.
No, I reckon that's why Capcom can't afford a decent translator, because they pissed away all their money buying a cruise ship to sink it off the coast of Italy to promote a game coming out to 3DS. It makes perfect irrational sense.
I think it's.
There must be some truth to that.
Yes, there must be some.
Yeah, there was no one on the cruise ship. They just sank it. That's all they did.
No, they put the old translators on it.
No, they wouldn't have done that.
But in fairness, though, the reviews that have been out so far have said the Queen Zenobia is one of the best locations the series has ever had.
See, I'm telling you, it's a nice place, that cruise ship. Decaying flesh rotting on a reanimated corpse, triggering V-Act. Amphibian DNA injected into human embryos, resulting in hybrid hunters. Dehydrated humans undergoing violent mutations, rejecting eyesight and mutating an elongated tongue. Naked biological abominations, marching relentlessly with unnatural discipline and claws. This is not just a biohazard. This is a Project Umbrella-inspired biohazard.
Luckily for me, I only noticed the second time I went through that's where the BOW gas rounds are. So if I hadn't have gone back there, I would have missed them. And you obviously need them for the Tyrant fight on the plane. So I got lucky in that respect because I could not remember in the game where the BOW gas rounds were.
Yeah, I wish someone told me that's what the BO gas rounds are for.
I'm sorry, Nick, could I not tell you this?
I put it out on our Discord. I said, "What's everyone going to use that?" But I'd already got past the. Everyone said, "Use it on the Tyrant on the aeroplane."
Tyrant, and you're already past. That's not everyone else's fault. That's your fault for running through the game and not checking earlier before you. As soon as you got them.
What do you tend to use them on, Nick, in previous playthroughs?
In playthroughs, right at the end of Claire's game, when you are wandering through the Antarctic terminal, the main area. If you remember it gets repopulated by zombies. The main sorting office area, huge.
So what BOW did you use it on, Nick?
Zombie.
Zombies, ladies and gentlemen.
You could say the clue was in the name, Nick. The anti-bow gas rounds. The most powerful bow in the game is the Tyrant. But the weakest is probably the zombie.
But it takes out all of them. That was the whole point. The gas fills the room, and I was able just to jolly through. They're on the floor. I was quite happy with my outcome. I also got caught looking at the magical hats. There's 2 magical hats, isn't there? I always think that they're like wizard hats. Are they hats? I always think they're hats.
Party hats.
Party hats.
Party hats.
Are they party hats? I always thought they were wizard hats.
Why would there be wizard hats?
Why would you think they're carnal party hats?
One, it just looks like it's blue with yellow stars. It looks like a traditional wizard hat.
A Lord of the Rings cosplay party to welcome Leon.
So you heard it here first, folks. Leon is a Lord of the Rings fan. They
Nick, please.
They themed a welcome party for him.
If only that could have been a question. What fantastical item would one find in the West Office?
And we all would have been like, fantastical item? What's he talking about? And then he would have been like, there's some wizard hats. And we would have been like, they're not wizard hats.
It's canon. Leon likes wizards. It's canon.
Before we crack on, I'm afraid, gentlemen, we've received a complaint. Oh yes, I'm afraid. So, believe it or not, Mr. Spencer, it's not your fault. We've had an email complaint from an unknown gentleman, and it's come through to the founder's email address, and he's passed it over to me, so we can all hear what he's had to say, and so we can respond accordingly. So, what I intend to do was just to read that out to you, and, well, we can all reflect on what is, quite frankly, serious accusations Here we go. I was appalled by the recent Project Umbrella podcast episodes in which you show a blatant disregard for some of the finer Capcom titles. I'm sick of the bias. Where is the Operation Raccoon City coverage this series? Where are the reviews of the Anderson movies? You already let hundreds of us down with your hilariously unfunny Gaiden episode, and now there's been no Mahara Desire news for what, 2 episodes? I've been waiting patiently for the long-awaited Confidential Report episode, looking forward to an in-depth analysis of Tyler Hamilton's mission and the potential of the MS virus being the most important and most powerful virus in the series. But what do we get instead? A 4-part Oh, Aren't You So Clever? Revelations 2 episode where you got practically every prediction wrong. You know what I think? You need some new blood. I've been a long-standing fan of the franchise for 2 years now, right the way back to when Biohazard 6 was released, so I know my stuff. I can bring quality discussion, humour, and a bit of sexiness to what is, frankly, currently a very dull podcast. I mean, you have a host who won't play on any of the game modes except easy, that about sums things up. You even call yourselves Project Umbrella Podcast, yet actually only one of you works for Project Umbrella. I hear legends about Neptune and his legendary knowledge, but frankly he may as well be spinning a roulette wheel when dishing out some of his facts. Every time I hear George Trevor's voice I want to puke. I especially cannot stand his god-awful, chirpy, gerbil-faced optimism.
Whoa.
And as for that Batman, what an unbelievable git. He can't even explain how the viruses work properly. Star's Tyrant is simply a washed-up has-been of the community, desperately trying to stay relevant by clinging on to his glory days of being a staff member on rehorror.net, a far, far superior website. I haven't even heard Mr. Spencer this season, so assuming he died in prison somewhere last year. And as for this new guy, Romby, as in a zombie, hilarious. He should be on Channel 4. So in short, gentlemen, I'll be switching my allegiance to Rely on Horror from now on for their quality news and Resident Evil coverage. P.S. I know you won't even take this letter seriously because it's written in English and not Japanese. But rest assured, there are no mistranslations in this one, you insufferable twats.
Wow! Well, that's harsh from Newsbot. If he could go that far.
Wow. He had me at sexy.
To be honest, I was kind of nodding when he said that I was in prison. So I hadn't died in prison, obviously, but I have been in prison. So he's kind of right. But
So, wow.
Shocking.
I think what you'll all agree is a very, very strongly worded email from an anonymous person. He's quite happy to write that, but not actually tell us who he is. So,
Other than just insult us all, what was the point of that?
Controversial, challenging, demanding, explicit, and that's just Batman playing Ghost Survivors. Resident Evil 2 Remake has been a game long in the making and requesting. The original is quite rightly heralded as a cornerstone of survival horror on any platform, taking the original game, amping up 20 times, but still retaining the horror and tension-filled atmosphere from the Spencer Mansion. In the glory days of the PlayStation, this was one of the first blockbuster games that took what was seen as a nerdish and geeky pastime into the mainstream, famously being immortalised in the TV show Spaced and spawning a devoted following in the process. As soon as the original game was remade, the clamour for Resident Evil 2 began, and now, in 2019, Capcom have delivered. As we discussed in the last podcast, on the whole, they've done a sterling job, both in terms of graphical ability and bringing proper survival horror to the masses. However, as dust settles on this masterpiece, we now must question where this sits in what has generally been a fairly consistent 20-plus year Biohazard narrative. Is it to be ignored and cast aside? Glorious reimagining, just like Operation Raccoon City? Or does it replace the beloved original in one fatal swoop? And if so, what about the many other games intrinsically linked to this series? Is this game canon? Batman.
No.
You loved Big Head mode in the 1990s. You devoured zombie mode in practically every game in the noughties. Now prepare yourself for the next mode to take the video game industry by storm. Coming exclusively to Resident Evil 2 in 2019. Hats on all enemies mode. Following the overwhelming positive fan reaction to the new Tyrant, we thought, why not charge people for more of this? Pre-order now for an additional $9.99 and you can experience hats on all enemies. Zombie.
Nice hat.
Liquor.
Nice hat.
Brine irons.
On the ground, hands behind your head. Nice hat.
And that big cloud from Birkin's lab? Well, strap yourself in, because that's wearing a fedora. So prepare yourself for a top hat experience. for the game mode of the generation, only with Resident Evil 2. Pre-order exclusively at GameStop to get that essential hat for Ada Wong.
Nice hat. You're trying to look like a secret agent?
All right, then. Well, I've got a couple of questions here from a staff member on our forums. She's a big fan of your work, and she's a big fan of the character of Wesker in particular. So you can imagine like her disappointment with not being able to make it due to work commitments and the like.
Absolutely. Can I just take for a moment there? That was really kind of funny on my end, listening to you saying she's a really big fan of Wesker, and then I hear someone go, unzip.
I heard that,
Okay, I get it. You're a fan, all right.
I'm just going to say now that wasn't me.
No, whose zip was that? Let's all just get a little relaxed for this interview. Okay.
It's the only way I can conduct them, to be honest. I've got to have like half a glass of Merlot first, and then
and then let's get naked.
The cut content with regard to Ada Wong and whether that was something that was already removed by the time you came on board, or that was something, like you say, during the kind of the process and as the story develops, was felt wasn't needed.
It never got beyond an idea, is what I'll say about that. To the best of my knowledge, it was never the only stuff relating to that I saw was some grey box previs that I was sent to do a writer's test for, when I was in the process of being hired. That's literally the only time, and even then at the time, they didn't actually tell me that it was supposed to be Ada Wong. I didn't find that out until later. That's the only time I ever saw that, and it's the only time it was ever mentioned. That it was never, to the best of my knowledge, it was never seriously considered, to be part of the game. And certainly by the time I flew over to Japan and got in the writer's room, it was never mentioned again.
How could the Nemesis and by extension the entire game compete? What new ideas can Remake 3 bring to the table? And can it successfully manage that slight dial turn on the action while still retaining the quintessential survival horror feel? Let's find out. Brief impressions, please. Stars Tyrant.
Hang on a minute, Nick. I've got to prepare myself for this one, so just all bear with me. There we go. Right.
What did I think of that?
There's so much to say. I will say I had a fun experience with it playing as a game. I think the dodge mechanic is a really neat, wonderful addition, and I think for, I don't know, about 2/3, it's a mostly clever modern retelling of Resident Evil 3, and if you look deep into it, like, you can actually see how they've put like a modern spin on many of the events that are in the game. However, Post the Hospital section is a game and a story that missteps so hard I can't recall a ball drop this fatal in a Resident Evil game for such a long time, to the point where it derailed the entire experience for me. I think the last sort of third is absolutely woeful, to be honest.
How have you found the overall experience of being the community manager for Resident Evil?
Oh my gosh, it's been an absolutely amazing adventure so far. I mean, you get to travel, you get to learn so many new things, you get to meet a lot of new friends and people. Every day I get to speak to a lot of people who share my passions, and honestly, it's just such a privilege to do what I do. I feel very grateful, and I still have days when I kind of wake up and I'm awestruck, like, oh, I gotta get to work. Oh wait, I work for Capcom. So that still happens. One thing I will say is one of the most rewarding things, and one of the most things I've been the most excited about since I started working here, is seeing how much the Resident Evil community has grown. There's a lot of new people who are either discovering the series for the first time, or they're kind of remembering, like, oh wait, is that the game I played back in '98? Oh man, it's coming out again. And say they replayed the series. So that's been something I've really enjoyed, is kind of seeing so many new and old faces returning to the community. And also just, as I said, being a hardcore RE fan myself, seeing everyone's sharing their creativity and seeing their streams and videos and art, it really kind of has reignited my own passion for the series a lot as well. So yeah, all in all, it's been fantastic.
Sample obtained. This one's mine. Sample obtained. Sample obtained. There it is. Sample obtained. This one's mine. Sample obtained. Sample obtained. Sample obtained. There it is. There it is.
Stars Tyrant, are you still with us?
Yes, I have purged most of my anger, so it will not be as animated or as excitable as I think people will expect, because I have to dial it down a bit.
We'll see about that. Right, 3 of us have played it. I'll moderate. Stars Tyrant, you can go last. Romby, what's your brief impressions of Umbrella Corps?
It's shit.
It is brief, you're right.
No, I didn't play the whole game. I played the demo that was free over the last weekend. Yes. Really, really poor. Honestly, what am I supposed to say that's positive about it? I mean, it's a game. It's online. No, honestly, I don't even know where to start. And I obviously don't have access to the whole thing. It was long waiting times, even though I would think that the free weekend was supposed to be busier than normal, so if it's like that all the time, then I hate seeing what it's like when that wasn't a free weekend. The gameplay is monotonous, is not really fun, not really well explained. Mission types, I didn't play the experiment part of the game, so that could be different or worse or better, but pretty lackluster.
Fantastic.
Thanks. Yeah, okay. I told you, it was summary in 2 words. Much
on a more positive spin, let's turn to Mr. Anti-Code Veronica himself, Batman.
Well, I've read about all the hate the game's got, and I can accept that. My only counter-argument to it all is that I just think the game is simply, it's just not as broken as what people have made it out to be. It's cheap, it looks pretty poor, it doesn't play fantastically, but we knew all this from the very moment it was announced and the reveal trailer was shown. All throughout the last year we've seen countless trailers and gameplay videos showcasing an average-looking game, and the previews from people who played it suggested it was never going to be great. And yet, all of a sudden, when it was released, people went into it expecting it to be a multiplayer shooter equal to the quality of like Doom and Counter-Strike and Unreal Tournament. So it's no bloody wonder people were disappointed with it. My experiences count largely with just a single-player experiment mode, because I'm not much of a multiplayer gamer, and when I did try it, I got my ass handed to me every single time. But I just classify it as dumb, mindless fun. You know, the zombies react beautifully to being shot, far better than both Chronicles games. After 20-odd games, we actually have some decent-sounding gunfire effects. The BOWs were quite fearsome and an actual challenge, and I thought the maps were pretty fun. The controls were fine, the camera was fine, and you know, I enjoy coming home and spending half an hour on the game. It does get boring quickly, but in short bursts, it's fine. So yeah, fuck you all.
Jesus Christ.
This perhaps, because obviously in the Japanese version, Chris is referred to as a gorilla, which I think is an inside joke within the Japanese community. And this obviously leads, one of the most hotly debated things within the community is which takes the lead in terms of like the storytelling and ultimately canon, because there is quite sometimes vicious debates amongst the community as to like whether the core Japanese script is the canon and any differences to the English version. You always tend to go the Japanese. Obviously, we know in more recent years, we believe it's written in English first and then translated into Japanese. Is there much truth to that? And could you sort of elaborate, if you could, which does take the lead more? Was it like more your writing, or do they inform each other kind of thing?
Well, first of all, I'll say I'm relieved that I thought this was going to be a question about Wide Chris with his new character design image, which again, nothing to do with me. So it is a bit of both. The English script, I can't speak to previous games. I don't know exactly how 7 worked, but I know for this one, the English script is the canon, as it were. Like I wrote my script first. Again, all in collaboration, yes, working often from previs supplied by Capcom and what have you. But nevertheless, it was, I was writing an original script, as it were, which was then being translated almost simultaneously, mostly by Dezaki-san, I believe, into Japanese. But of course, part of that is translating, and part of localization in general is translating cultural references and keeping, as you said, references in localized versions of prior games in a series. So the stuff about, referring to Chris as a gorilla. I didn't write that, but I have no doubt that Dezaki-san, when he was, translating and localizing back into Japanese, would have put references like that in there. But in terms of, when you have something that's localized like this, and especially something that has been originated in 2 different languages, it's so hard to say what is canon and what isn't. All I can say is that, I wrote my English script first, and then it was translated into Japanese. But which one you want to regard as canon, that's an argument that I don't want to get involved in.
Alan's funny stories. Just time for one quick funny story before the news. On line 4 we have Roy from Bungay. Hello, Roy.
Hello.
Funny story, what is it?
After completing Resident Evil Revelations, I sold my Nintendo 3DS with a local paper, and then 6 months later, I received the very same one back as a birthday present from my brother-in-law, minus the power pack.
I see. So you the present you gave away, you then got back?
Yep, that's it. Goodbye.
What a funny story. Alan's funny stories. That was a funny story.
I mean, this is actually one of my favourite subplots in the series, because if you put the files together from Resident Evil 2, 3 and Outbreak File 2, it gives you the complete picture of what's happened to the police. It's really, really good. To explain the downfall of the police, you have to go back 2 days earlier to September 26th, and it starts with the infected restaurant owner coming to take shelter in the station. You know, the one who had the jewel in his pocket, which you need to use on the City Hall clock. He's infected and he's shot to death, and Marvin has to suspend investigation of the theft of the jewel because there's not enough officers because of what's going on in the city. And that same day the station's attacked by a large number of zombies. You know, let's assume this is why all the windows are broken in the various corridors, because they've smashed their way inside. You know, many officers and civilians are killed during this. David Ford writes about how an officer saved him, but when the time came to repay the favour, he was too scared to help. The survivors regroup. David Ford writes the first operation report, I think, today.
Yep.
And I like to think this is what the plan you can see on the chalkboard in the briefing room.
Oh, yeah, because if you go up to the description, it says that something like a strategy was being planned here.
Yeah, and I think this is when Chief Irons comes out of his office and starts killing anyone he comes across. I think there's a file saying he shot someone called Ed in the back.
In the back, yeah. The look of sort of, I think, pain on his face was exquisite or something as he died in front of him.
That's right, yeah. And then late that night is when the UBCS come into the city, and then it must just go beyond midnight when the police make the last stand on the streets in the intro, because you can pick up a photograph showing the police SWAT teams deploying, and it says it's dated September 27th. So it must just be after midnight because it's concurrent with the UBCS going in, which they go in on the 26th. Obviously, most of the police are killed in this battle, and on September the 27th in the morning, there's roughly about 20 survivors left, which includes Elliot, Edward, David Ford, Marvin, Aaron, Tony, Fred, Rita from Desperate Times, and about 12 others, including some civilians. And then that afternoon, zombies break through the west barricade and 12 more people are killed. The ruined tables and the bullet holes in the walls in the west office are a result of what happens here, I think. And the survivors begin to retreat in this battle, and this is when the police are effectively split into two groups. David Ford takes his group through the door into the evidence room and into the west wing of the station and locks the door, whereas Marvin takes his group back out into the main hall and locks the door to the western office, which is how you find it in Desperate Times. So, as I said, the police are now split into two, and it's really clear in the files when you read it all. The officers in the west wing are David Ford, Elliot, Edward, Andy, which is just an NPC from Outbreak, and about 8 others. David Ford locks some civilians inside the evidence room to keep them safe, and it's explained in the Biohazard 2 guidebook that some of these are infected and they eventually turn into zombies, which is why when you play Resident Evil 2, which was written obviously before Resident Evil 3, you find 4 zombies in there. That was meant to be
cool.
That was meant to be the explanation behind that.
Wow.
And the remake of 3 is going to destroy everything that you just said with the files that come out.
Well, Remake 2 already has, because you've got the other survivors in the East Wing, Marvin and the characters from Desperate Times. Both groups are cut off from each other with no way of communicating, and then obviously you've still got Chief Irons in his office, the mayor's daughter's hiding somewhere, you've got Ben in the cells with 2 other prisoners who you can meet in Desperate Times as well. So I counted them all up, and I think the total number of people left in the station at this point is 21. And then David Ford and his colleague retreat back into the briefing room, and he writes up the second operation report. They also start to barricade up the door connecting the corridor where you meet the first Licker in Resident Evil 2 to the corridor leading to the briefing room. In Resident Evil 3 that's barricaded up, so they must have done that. So David Ford's team's got access to the briefing room, the eastern staircase, the evidence room, the dark room, the upstairs corridor, Star's office and the library. We're still on September 27th. David Ford goes to the office next to the dark room to drink whiskey, and he contemplates blowing his own brains out with his shotgun, but he doesn't do this because he's interrupted by the first appearance of the Licker, which kills 3 more of his team. And then at some point a fire breaks out near the helipad, because that's what we see in including Desperate Times, which takes place on the evening of the 27th. And then you've got Desperate Times playing out. Aaron, Tony and Fred are killed here. Rita escapes. Marvin is wounded and locks himself in the West office. At some point he must come out and barricade the doors in the main hall because there's no one else who he can literally be, to be honest. And then by September 28th, there's 14 people left alive. There's Marvin, David Ford, Elliot Edward, Ben, the 2 other prisoners, Chief Irons, the mayor's daughter, and 6 others. And then Operation Report 2 happens at 2:30 a.m. that day when the west wing of the station is attacked by zombies, and 4 more are killed, including David Ford. So Elliot Edward writes this operation log saying there's just him and 3 others left, and that's when they decide to try and escape via the sewer once they find a safe route through the station. So by the time Jill arrives in Resident Evil 3 on the afternoon of September 28th, in total there's 6 other officers left alive in the stations: Chief Irons, Marvin, Elliot Edward and his 3 colleagues. But when Jill moves through what she can access in the police station in Resident Evil 3, she should in theory run into Elliot Edward and his team, because that's the only part of the station they can be in. But because we never see them, the only room they can be in is the library. I mean, Jill does find Marvin unconscious in the rest office, but when you go back there, he's got up and left. His body's disappeared. Presumably when Jill leaves the station, Elliot and his 3 friends come out of their hiding place, remove the barricades from all the doors because they're obviously not there in Resident Evil 2. They eventually abandon their plan of escaping through the sewers and instead try and signal the rescue helicopter, which obviously takes some time to achieve because all communications are down. I know I'm deviating slightly here, but if you go into September 29th, before Leon and Claire arrive, one by one Elliot's 3 colleagues are all killed off, and by the time Leon and Claire arrive at the beginning of RE2, only Elliot remains, and we see him get killed on the heliport just as his rescue arrives. And this last part is just purely my theory, but when you play Resident Evil 2, you'll notice you'll find 3 police officer corpses that are not present in the same rooms in Desperate Times 2 days earlier. One is in the East office, one's in the Night Watchman's room, and one's on the 2nd floor corridor being pecked to death by crows. So I like to think these are the 3 guys that were with Elliot Edward. So that just leaves Chief Irons, and when Leon visits the cells, the 2 prisoners from Outbreak are missing. So that's basically the entire downfall of the police. It sounds a lot, but it's all in the files, and then Remake 2 comes along and just chucks it all in the bin.
Can I state that was absolutely incredible?
I do believe as well, one of the scenarios that you would have assumed would have been in File 3 has those 2 convicts in it, so I'm guessing you would have seen their story of how they escaped.
Yeah, but it's interesting, and that was one of the big disappointments for Remake 2, that they just didn't consider any of that and just tossed it all away.
This is why it's very easy for me to just put that in a non-canon territory, because I don't see why you would write off all the games that tell that storyline just for the sake of a remake when, you know, the original game exists fine.
I'm just going to go and check on my array of pizzas. Yeah, I guess over 5 minutes or so in there.
Frustrating thing is, Nick, I think a lot of that's on the cutting room floor.
Yes.
The first trailer does depict life in the village before the incident, so I think we were due to see all that in an earlier build. And for me personally, it's heartbreaking that a lot of this, if people go back and watch the original reveal trailer for Village, you will see an entire trailer full of villager sequences that are not in the final game, and a lot of it is life before the carnage, as you call it.
Oh, fuck. Time, oven, pizzas. Fucking kitchen is on fire. There's just smoke coming from the oven. I can't breathe.
You must let the community know the truth. Gain this cannon.
Suddenly, out of the darkness, a creature lunges, grabbing Lucia and pulling her into the sea.
I don't believe this. Leon, wait here. I'm going in after her.
Leon waits for Barry to surface. Pulling Lucia from the ocean, they both make it onto the deck of the ship.
Take it easy, girl. You're going to be all right. That's it. Deep breaths.
Oh, jeez. Not again.
Eerily standing behind Barry and Lucia is another Lucia.
What's going on? I'm Lucia. Don't believe her. I'm Lucia.
Don't either of you move a muscle.
She's lying! I'm the real Lucia. Barry, look at this.
Lucia nicks her hand with a knife. It oozes red blood.
Ouch. Good thinking, Lucia.
I don't believe it. It's turning into another creature.
Long live Gaiden. Hashtag Gaiden is canon. Hashtag Gaiden is life.
Yeah, there's a lot about this game that kind of keeps your interest and keeps kind of keeps you going with it. And Stars makes a good point that maybe it wasn't designed necessarily to sit down and play it through all in one hit, but to kind of maybe come back to it, pick it up and put it down, and pick it up again. There's a lot about it to kind of keep your interest and wanting for you to come back and continue and come back to the game.
And you know what? Shout out to you, Jerry, because you and Nick, you really are sort of. I would be happy to say you guys are the ambassadors of Gaiden in the community. The infectious enthusiasm you both have for this title, and why shouldn't it have? That maybe started off disingenuous, but it absolutely wasn't.
We have one space left on our top 10. 9 spaces have been taken. We now finish off with a round robin. I'm going to go through a couple of other canon, debatable entries into the Resident Evil series. All I need from you guys, a yes or no for any of them. Here we go. Operation Raccoon City.
No.
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 Resident Evil Gaiden. Yes.
No.
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 Oh, shame. The Mercenaries 3D.
No.
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 Confidential report. Yes.
I'm off.
I'm guessing that's a no.
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 Mahara Desire.
No.
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 Heavenly Island.
No.
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 Finally, Biohazard the Stage.
No.
No.
No. And not Voice of Gaia either.
Good.
We are actually Resident Evil fans. We do like the series.
This is relevant to canon in Towards the Village.
Yeah, this is it is important to remember that this is just strictly for a beginner's roadmap to Village.
I was going to say something. On the last podcast, Nick, you said something about some face on the mansion.
Yes, did you see it?
No.
Oh. And the first bit of news to discuss is Biohazard Operation Raccoon City has now been released in Japan with sales figures.
Surprisingly good.
The Horrors Alive reported this, with 252,525 copies sold in its first week, which is, as you said, not bad. How did that compare to America?
I don't have the figures on me, but I'm sure someone does here.
Well, I've been trying to sell off my copies. I'm living lavish right now. I just bought my hot set because all y'all haters thought that I wouldn't be able to sell any.
Well, that's at least 5,000 copies have sold in America.
Yeah, Smiley, how much were you offering with each copy that you were giving away?
Sold each one for $500 at first because I didn't know if I could sell a single one, and then I brought the price down.
I was talking in terms of, paying people to take them off your hands.
How many have you sold? Do you think now, Smiley?
4.
4. Can you give us an exact figure on how many you bought? You just said vaguely boxes to
I
me.
spent my inheritance on about a good 1,000.
Well, I played Leon's campaign first. I was excited by this because the suggestion was for the survival horror fans, there was a campaign that was suited for you. The only difference I could see between this campaign and the others was just less zombies and less was happening. I didn't particularly like the controls, the aiming system seemed quite off. Obviously, there's no progression in the graphics, which isn't a big point for me. I think the point's been made, what we lost in graphics, we've gained in a much larger game. But there were so many additions to this that just took away any feeling of tension or horror for me. This on-screen map indicator, it regresses the art of finding a destination to the level of ease fit for a primary school child. It's ridiculous. Capcom are taking him by the hand and saying, go there, go there, go there.
Well, no, it's not. No, wait. Can I correct you? Not Biohazard. Umbrella Corps. Because I've gone through the press.
In
Biohazard?
In the Asian market, it's going to have the Biohazard branding.
Oh, I was in my little world of denial.
I must say, someone in Capcom has geniusly named this title because Umbrella Corps just really does imply it is dead on arrival, doesn't it? It's just
development for it was so long coming to it, and I just remember being so excited. It was the first time I'd imported one of the games in quite a while, because you could do the swap trick on the GameCube. I got a action replay ordered in as well, so I could swap it out. And I remember sitting down the first day being super excited and playing through it, and being able to do that at the same time everyone else was when it was coming out in the US. And I just remember really, really enjoying that experience. And I've never really disliked 4 every time I've gone back. There's definitely bits of it where I go, oh, not this section and not this thing. It's one of those games that's been very diversive in its history. At the time it was released, it was universally loved. It changed the franchise. Yeah, it's an important legacy game in the history of gaming.
No, you get that one scene where you see him outside in the woods hunting. So I'm kind of wondering if you do meet him for a little bit.
At first, you need to be quite a few scenes of him actually thinking about it.
At first, you're in the village, everything's kind of cool. Then when it starts getting darker out, like the other villagers start freaking out a little bit. I'm kind of wondering if the first section is like an open world type deal where you're going around to house and everyone's just kind of freaked the fuck out about what's going on.
That would be really good if you got like a normal village walking around, and then as you say, as nightfall starts to descend, things start going really wrong.
Yeah, you start getting people saying, "Hey, you don't need to be here after dark. You're an outsider. You need to go."
That could be really scary.
Early on, I think we, as far as the English language audiences go, we got like a very non-committal comment from Capcom that these were just reimaginings of the scenarios and that they didn't take an overall precedence. But then we've had later comments. Peter Fabiano in particular has made the comment that they both basically exist in the same environment, which for 2 kind of works, as Nick's alluded to, kind of that, and Sean made the comment that Cliff Notes version, all the main plot points of 2 happen, but the 3 is such a grand departure from a lot of the story points and scenario situations, like obviously Jill not going to the RPD, and the way Brad's demise is, and all that sort of stuff is quite varied and changed compared to the original, and so that's where it becomes such a confusing kind of situation. I mean, I guess it's a good chance to ask you, Alex, has any of that been portrayed in Japan? Is there discussions about that from anyone over there, or is it just something that's just accepted for what it is?
I do think people have asked that question. I don't know if people consider it much of a big deal. I think the story has always been kind of seen as a means to an end, rather than something for people to dissect, in great detail, like a lot of us have done. So I guess if you know Japanese, there are like certain expressions that allow us to write off these inconsistencies in a very natural way. It's kind of hard to describe, but for example, like when the original RE3 came out, you went to the RPD and you saw the boarded up doors. I think the answer is the developers don't want you to go through that door is enough for people here. And then there's a linguistic expression that kind of allows that to slide, and then people just accept it. Whereas in English, I don't know if that's as easy to do. There's an expression in Japanese that literally translates to "it cannot be helped," or "there's nothing we can do about it." And I feel like that's what the average Japanese Resident Evil fan would say when they see like something that's not consistent with RE2. They'll just end up saying, "Oh, well, what can you do? Keep playing the game."
I hope everyone has enjoyed those clips. As long-term listeners will know, towards the end of every podcast, we of course have Neptune's Biohazard quiz, which is one of my personal highlights. I very much enjoy doing them. Just a bit of background information. It was always touted right from the very beginning. Go back to episode 0, and the quiz is very much present. Back when me, John, and George were creating the podcast and what we're going to discuss and making it lore centric, I kind of popped the idea that it could get quite serious. I felt that there was always the opportunity, because we always planned on being quite, I'll say nerdish, but you know what I mean, kind of like quite in depth in our discussions, that if we had something a bit light-hearted towards the end of the podcast, it will leave a slightly nicer taste perhaps to listeners, and a nice way of ending any podcast. So yeah, John, do you remember those early days and talking about having a quiz?
I do, yeah. I remember, because the plan was always to make the podcast quite serious in tone, and yeah, it was very much your idea to put a quiz on at the end and make it a bit more lighthearted, and I think it really does complement each episode, although as the years have gone on, we've had some absolutely calamitous quizzes. I mean, I still get a cold sweat every time you mention a veto question, or every time you mention some sort of special bonus round that you've concocted with this giddy little sound in your voice. I break out in a cold sweat. But yeah, the quiz has always been one of the most enjoyable parts of the podcast. Very, very fun to do, and yeah, I think it complements the work we do really well.
Yeah, so Rob, you always look forward to your groan when non-canon corner.
I was going to say when you guys talk about the point of like having it as a difference from being so serious to how serious it sometimes gets taken, it's quite funny in its regards. Especially all of us going, "Oh, Nick, not again."
Yeah,
you know, like it is, but it's definitely it's given us some of the best moments and some of the funniest moments, I think, as well, and it is something to look forward to every episode, even if we make it sound like we hate it.
Absolutely. So again, for your listening pleasure, I've been able to go back through the archives and find some of the best moments. I suspect your favourite will be here. Pop up the popcorn and let's listen back to all 7 seasons of Neptune's Biohazard quiz.
5 questions, 3 participants, and 1 topic. It's Neptune and Newsy's Biohazard quiz.
Their minds will be tested.
I have an answer, but it's based on a thread that Welsh made.
Experiments will be undertaken.
I've been told by the boss that you have to be deducted a point.
Fuck off.
Great knowledge is needed.
I got massive 0 out of 5 last time.
And a new power will arise.
Jesus Christ. What kind of fucking question is that? You said these questions weren't hard.
I might as well just have said, what sandwich was I eating in 1985? Behind the lights.
George Trevor, the Batman, and Star's Tyrant. It's time for Neptune and Newsy's Biohazard quiz! New format. New questions. And new challenges. Broadcast a new quiz to test the resolve. Welcome to Neptune's Biohazard quiz!
New season. New questions. New answers. And probably new fuck-ups. Welcome to Neptune's Biohazard Biohazard Quiz. The quiz. A test of knowledge, especially as a competition between individuals or teams as a form of entertainment. Usually hosted by a quizmaster.
Can I just ask, have you had all of these questions independently verified?
He doesn't even know the general knowledge stuff. Why is this man the quizmaster?
It's not going to be one of these quizzes, is it?
I think we should get another question, John. Don't you?
Already fallen into controversy.
Already fallen into... Yeah, well, that was to be expected.
I'm once again Nick is at the centre of that controversy.
Absolutely.
This is Neptune's Biohazard Quiz. For the past 8 years and 5 seasons, we have brought you groundbreaking lore, in-depth analysis, game reviews, and high-quality content. We've also brought you untold controversies, and countless tales of underhand tactics, all in aid of the quiz.
I'd just like to announce, everybody, that this is 0 points for me this week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So my nomination person said 7, but I didn't agree with 7. I said it was 17, and then you said it was 17.
I didn't want people to think I'm cheating by just saying the same number that someone else has said. So I just the next number that sounds similar to 17. I swear I did not cheat, yo.
Jesus Christ. That's a fucking question, isn't it?
Quite frankly, if we only got 1 point and that's the winning score, then we're not doing our jobs right, and we're all going to have to hand in our Biohazard cards.
Welcome to Neptune's Biohazard Quiz. 25 years of Resident Evil. 10 years of the Resident Evil podcast. Expert knowledge is needed in what we call the quiz.
This was my only opportunity for a point this week.
I'd just like to announce, everybody, that this is 0 points for me this week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We've talked about the games straying too far from the origins. This Resident Evil quiz, we're now getting Spice Girls as the correct answer. I mean, it's time to quit.
Welcome to Neptune's Biohazard Quiz.
Jesus Christ. That's a fucking question, isn't it?
Batman. Star Tyrant. George Trevor. Robbie McGregor. Mr. Spencer. Neptune's Biohazard Quiz.
I always feel the need to let people know where we get the music for the quiz from, because I doubt it's well known within England, let alone outside of it. Is it Bruce Forsyth's Play Your Cards Right, Nick?
It is, yeah.
So no, I think anyone across the seas needs to Google Bruce Forsyth and Play Your Cards Right and have a look at his dolly birds.
She amazed.
The strange thing is, if you look at him, he actually looks younger in the 70s than he does now.
We should.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, he is younger in the 70s. So of course he's going to look younger.
I think that's called aging.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Now he looks younger now than he did in the 70s.
And finally, question number 5. It's the music question. Yay! You're listening to The Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven. A classic, of course, appears in Resident Evil 1. But what comes next? G sharp, C sharp, E. 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 A, C sharp, E. A, D. What?
What are we looking for? Just a random letter?
The next note, yes.
Is it just a letter, or is it something sharp?
I'm not going to say that information.
You've got to repeat that once.
So,
Yeah, go on.
so you're listening to the Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven, a classic tune from the Resident Evil series. But what comes next? G sharp, C sharp, E sharp. G sharp, C sharp, E. 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 A, C sharp, E. A, D.
Is it just one note?
Yes, we're looking for one note, yeah.
But that doesn't. I'm sorry to be pedantic, but how is that a reflection of my knowledge of Resident Evil?
It's not. But it's not.
So then it's void as a question.
No, it gives everyone a good guess. I like a question where everyone has to have a good guess.
It makes sense if you. You should have asked the thing about in Resident Evil 3 with the clock tower little music box puzzle. That would have been better.
Sorry, but
yeah, no. Fucking hell.
But if you watch Jill playing enough, you'd know the answer.
Yeah. Well, would you?
I don't know. Anyway, I'll leave you to ponder these. Join us after this when we'll run through the answers. Anyway, question number 5 was the music round with Moonlight Sonata. It was nice to hear that again. I really don't need to repeat it, but it was G sharp, C sharp, E times by 8, then A, C sharp, E, A, D. What? What is the next note? George, did you know what the next note was?
Of course I fucking didn't.
You must have a guess.
I'm not Mozart.
Beethoven.
even him. Fucking hell. Well, I mean, E.
E, right. Batman.
Yeah, I'm going to guess E. Total guess, though. E.
Stars Tyrant.
C sharp.
Well, we had to go showing off with the sharp bit.
I have no idea.
The answer is F sharp.
Oh,
of course it was.
I'm going to give Stars Tyrant half for the sharp.
Whoa! What about me and Batman? Because the letter E is just before F in the alphabet.
Absolutely. Because he got half the point right with the sharp. But if you had said E sharp, George, you'd have got half.
I just thought it would have been a bit ostentatious to mention sharps and.
Plus, we've got a bonus question 6. In this particular quiz, it's an odd one out. So question 6 will be, which of your 5 answers is the odd one out? There is a connection running through all 5, but obviously one of them is phony. So can you identify that connection? Okay. I will tell you now that the connection can be in-universe or even out of universe. So an example would be that perhaps all 5 answers, or 4 answers in this case, they've all appeared. They've all appeared in a particular game, or they've all had file references in a particular game, or perhaps all surnames of all the people that you've answered are also presidents of the United States of America. It could be as diverse as that, gentlemen. Okay. So that's what you've got to think of. All 5 questions, the actual answers are only worth half a mark each because they're so easy. But you've got to think what is connecting your answers. But we'll go through the same format, asking the 5 questions, and then we'll see what everyone's got. So if everyone can clear their desktops, you can open up Notepad. Now, one of these answers is the odd one out, and you'll get 1 point if you can tell me which is the odd one out, and 2 points if you can tell me the connection.
Can you read out the answers again?
Yes, I can. So question number 1 was Deborah Harper. The answer to question number 2 was Angela Miller. The answer to question 3 was Rita. The answer to question number 4 was Monica. And question number 5 was Jessica Sherowat.
I have a theory.
I was thinking female pop stars and
well, as I said, it can be in universe or out of universe. So, Batman, have you any idea which do you think is the odd one out? For a point, which is the odd one out? Question 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5?
I have no idea, to be honest. 4.
And what's the connection?
And they're all female?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, Rombie, which is the odd one out?
I'm going to go with 3, and I have no idea why.
George Trevor? For the steal, really. This is the
It's going to end up being something really obvious in the end, I'm sure.
No, knowing you, Nick, I don't think it's going to be in universe, the connection.
Right.
So that would involve too much RE knowledge. So I'm going to say Monica is the odd one out.
Right.
And it's got something to do with pop music.
Star.
No idea.
Oh, I thought you had a theory. That's why I left you to.
I did, but then I was going to say something like questions 3 and 4 don't have surnames, and the connection is they're both Outbreak characters.
I mean, you're not wrong, obviously, with those type of things, but that's a bit obvious. There is a stronger connection. And what was your answer? Sorry, Ty. Potentially, of course, even if you get it right, you may. On what other answers.
I'll say Rita. Then question 3. I don't know why.
I'm afraid no points scored. The odd one out was question number 1, Deborah Harper, for the fairly obvious connection that all the other answers are female characters that appeared in Lou Bega's hit Mambo No. 5.
God. I was right. I said it had to do with pop music. Oh my god!
And just for our listeners,
how in the moist barrel of fucks are you supposed to get
that? And for our listeners, let's listen to that extract of the song.
I like Angela, Pamela, Sandra, and Rita. And as I continue, you know they're getting sweeter. A little bit of Monica in my life. A little bit of Erica by my side. A little bit of Rita's all I need. A little bit of Tina's what I see. A little bit of Sandra in the sun. A little bit of Mary all night long. A little bit of Jessica, here I am. A little bit of you makes me your man.
Yes, all the characters, Angela, Rita, Monica, and Jessica. In Mambo No. 5. So that means the winner of the quiz is Batman with 2 points. Well done, Batman. Oh, brilliant.
It was obvious, but it's not that obvious.
So, depending on how well that went down, we'll either do a similar theme to that next time, or we'll just have a standard 5-question quiz. Join us next time when you'll find out the answers to that question. I don't know. I was planning the quiz, and I think it happened to come on the radio, and I just noted that, they're in Resident Evil. Oh, so is she. And I thought, you know what, we could do a quiz around this. Batman?
I have no idea. I've never ever played the Code Veronica battle game.
Have you?
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's a shocker, even for me.
It's a good minigame.
So, Daisy, can you describe picture number 2?
He's got a white gown and naked and bare feet. He's got like a short and long hair. He's got something like a gold on his wrist. It's like a bracelet, but a bit bigger. And he's got like some tattoos on his arm things, or sleeves it could be. And he's got a rope around his waist with a bow at the very end. He's got like a torn pattern at the bottom. He's got like wing things on the neck.
Sneak into a Louisiana ghost house is the Sewer Gators episode what? He's refusing to come on.
God, these online friendships are paper thin.
Yeah. To be fair, I did pick Sonny because he said don't put me on, and now he's saying don't put me on. I can't be that surprised. Of course, Joke would say that.
Oh dear, Sonny, you're live. Any answer? Any episode number?
John, get out of here.
Just give me a number, Sonny. That can be
JC Wesker goes at episode 1969. Please leave. No clue at all.
Guess a number.
Yeah, episode 7.
Episode 7. That's noted. So thank you, Sonny, for your answer. That Rob will use that.
Thank you for bringing me on.
Thank you, Sonny.
No worries. Thanks for the call.
Rob, that was your phone a friend. I hope it helped.
So I'm allowed to agree or disagree.
You can do whatever you like with that information.
I can do whatever I want. I'm going to disagree because it was a complete stab in the dark. I actually just wanted to guess the number, but I know it's 17.
You've gone for 17, have you? Sean, start out. What's your answer?
I went for 6. I had absolutely no idea.
Okay. George, Trevor?
No, it's funny because you just pay so much attention to stuff in RE7 and little details, but things like that, I suppose, because they're not kind of connected to like the horror or something, would just go right over my head.
I'm assuming all you see it on is the timestamp on the VHS.
I've no idea.
I saw it on there's a file picture of it.
It's in the van, isn't it?
Yeah,
on
the
It's
pamphlet.
in the van.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, right.
The only reason I do remember this is I just wanted to put Sunny on the spot because I thought it was funny. It's also the episode it referenced in the demo, I think. As well. It's not just in the main game.
So, George, you have a number for me?
I sort of interrupted before because I thought I was being asked just now. I was just saying it's in the van, but these are the details I don't notice. I've got no. Oh, just to guess then 7. Oh no, that's
7.
What someone else said. So,
You're going with 7. Well, that's interesting. No, you can say that. Fine.
No, it's just to guess. But if someone already said that, no, I'll say 17.
No one said 7. Well, someone has said 7, but no one's given that as an official answer, so you can have 7 if you want, GT.
No, because I don't want to follow someone else. So I'll say 17. Thanks.
Well,
so funny.
The answer is episode 17. I don't believe it. So
thanks, GT. You said you wouldn't follow anyone, but you still followed my answer.
I'm really confused. I'm so confused right now.
Hang on a minute. That was exactly the same. I'm really confused as that famous question. the way it's
this is the new. This is so the new. Okay,
I'm having flashbacks in my brain.
Just to get this right. So my nomination person said 7, which he then said it's 7. But I didn't agree with 7. I said it was 17, and then you said it was 17.
I swear to you, I didn't hear what Romby said at all before. And the only reason I didn't want to go, and when Romby said I'd said 7, I didn't want people to think I'm cheating by just saying the same number that someone else has said. So I just the next number that sounds similar to 7 is 17. I swear on my son's life, I didn't know you then said 17. I just wanted to say any number that wasn't what you said, which you said was 7. I swear I did not cheat, Yoke, fuck off.
Oh my god.
We're now on to question 3, so listen up, John, which is an odd one out question. So which is the odd one out between the following characters? Yoko Suzuki, David Ford, or Kevin Ryman? John, you need some time to think, so we'll start with Batman.
Kevin Ryman and David Ford were both police officers and Yoko wasn't.
Okay. George Trevor?
So I thought it had something to do with NASA.
Naturally.
Fucking Jesus. This quiz, honestly, it's killing me. This quiz is the umbrella core of our podcast. It's fucking ruined.
Oh dear.
We haven't got the answer yet. Oh god, right, go on, Kevin.
Can I just ask, where did NASA come from?
I've got no idea. If you Google David Ford, you get he's an astronaut in real life, I think. Because I just these pictures fashion.
So you admit to using Google then?
I thought I could at least be allowed to know what game he was in. I thought Nick would tell us who he was. I've never Googled anything before on this quiz. I don't know. I have no idea.
You can guess. I suppose you get half a point for getting the right person.
Who's the odd one out?
Yeah.
David Ford, because he's the only one who's got a namesake who's an astronaut.
I like your train of thought. The caveat, of course, to this question was you got to think like me, and I think very weird. Stars Tyrant?
Well, there's so many answers.
There are so many answers, that's right.
Because, you could say David Ford, Kevin Ryman are RPD officers and Yoko isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So Yoko's the odd one out. You could say David Ford's the only character that hasn't been represented physically in a game, so then he's the odd one out.
Yep.
You could say he's also the odd one out because he's not in Outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is up to whatever the answer is. It's just worse than the fucking lottery. This is. How do I know you're just not going to change the answer?
Because I've got the answer written down, and it's.
Then
don't
worry,
fucking
Sean.
hell.
Don't worry if you don't win the lottery. Just ask and they can draw the numbers again if your numbers don't come out.
Then I'm going to say then I'm going to say it will be Yoko because she's not an RPD officer.
Okay. Romby?
I was going to guess Yoko. I have no idea why. I just was pecking at random.
Okay. And Mr. Spencer?
Well, this is like what Sean said, isn't it? When it's like it could be any of them.
Yep.
Because of various reasons. So this isn't about finding the truth to something. This is about how to get inside your fucking mind.
Correct.
Right? And I'm thinking, right, which is stupid, right? So I'm going to think, right.
This goes back to the old Shooting Stars style question. You remember Shooting Stars when there used to be name a breed of dog, and someone would say Labrador, and it's German Shepherd, and they would fucking get the answer wrong.
Yeah,
it's a load of bollocks.
Right? So now I think the key to answering this question correctly is to think, right, what would Nick say? Now, what's Nick like as a person? Let's see, he's conservative, voted Leave, Daily Mail reader. I'm gonna say.
If this is Nick's question, then the answer will be wrong.
Yeah. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to say it's Yoko because she's not a police officer. It's the obvious answer, but again, it worries me because it's obvious. But I'm going to go with that.
Sadly,
I should say on a legal point, I can't be done for cheating because I accidentally googled Kevin Ford. Right, not whoever you are.
You actively admit to having a browser open during the quiz. It's fucking unbelievable.
Who the fuck's Kevin Ford?
He's a NASA astronaut and retired US Air Force.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. How many times do you have the browser open?
I opened it. I didn't have it open.
Well, there's one for porn,
I
obviously.
specifically opened it.
This throws the whole quiz into disrepute.
No, well, it was already on YouPorn, so I just...
Well, we know where it was because we remember that fucking podcast, don't we, boys? When the porn quiz happened, yeah.
Let's get back to the answer. Now, the clue was actually in the names. The odd one out was Kevin Ryman, because the other two are brands of car where Ryman is a stationer's.
Fuck's sake!
That just makes me angry.
There was no fucking way, because I'm actually pissed now. I'm fucking annoyed.
Yeah, I know, that's made me annoyed as well.
It's not even a Resident Evil themed answer.
That's what I mean.
No.
Let me just continue, because
protest.
We would come at it from a law point of view. That is basically like saying that is the equivalent of saying what are the 6 lottery numbers that are going to be drawn tonight, and if you get one wrong, the answer is wrong. It's fucking bollocks.
Do you know what the answer to this is? Everyone just gets a point anyway.
Except Paul, because he googled stuff.
The answers that were given tonight were logical. They were within the series. We have canon sort of reasons for it, but no, it's because we didn't know the car manufacturers.
It's quite obvious, Suzuki Ford.
I know that now. Fucking hell.
You've managed to induce more hatred than Umbrella Corp.
You know the worst part? The worst part is this, Sean, right? If you turn round now and rightly say to Paul, well, hang on, he's been Googling. That's cheating. That's against the rules. He'll just go, I mean, NASA, there was some NASA thing here with that. What? And he fobs his way out of it. He fobs his way out of it. That's not an answer.
Did that even mean what?
George will probably win this quiz.
Cheated his way to it.
Oh, sorry. I'm crying my eyes out.
That question is fucking bullshit.
This question comes from Vito. On what date was the first draft of George Romero's screenplay for the first Resident Evil movie completed?
Jesus Christ.
What fucking question is that?
You said these questions weren't hard.
No, I have another question.
Then Vito might as well just have said, what sandwich was I eating in 1985 behind the bike shed? Fucking hell.
What sandwich were you eating back in it?
What was the manufacturer of Spencer's ventilator?
Hey, don't blame me. He personally PM'd me with this one.
Counting only the main series titles, name me a villain that has appeared at least 3 times and finally killed in the last appearance.
Well, obviously they'd probably be killed in their last appearance.
Well, not necessarily, there's flashbacks and things.
Oh, flashback.
I'm looking for a specific answer.
Well, the obvious answer is going to be Albert Wesker. Actually, maybe not, because when you say... Well, he was in Code Veronica, so that's a main title.
Code Veronica is part of the main series.
Okay, so he was in Code Veronica, he was in Ori 5, he was in Ori 4, he was in Ori 1, so that's at least whatever appearances. He died in his last appearance, which is Ori 5. Well, actually, he was in Revelations 2 is not part of the main, so he was in a picture in that, but that doesn't count. Okay, that's one. I can't really have villains that turned up. You know, I'm thinking Albert Wesker here. It's the only one that makes sense. And Spencer was only in Ori 5, technically, wasn't he?
Albert Wesker is a final answer for 100 points.
Albert Wesker.
Albert Wesker is incorrect.
Christ for that.
Okay.
The answer I was looking for is obviously the infamous Boulder.
Oh, fucking hell.
The Boulder
yes, of course.
debuted in Resident Evil Remake, harassing Jill and Chris in the underground caverns. It then relocated to Spain and attacked Leon, before finally appearing in Africa 6 years later, where it was punched to death by Chris Redfield. Unlucky, gents.
Brilliant.
You're shit at these bonus questions, I have to admit.
Moving on to round 3. This is the open round, so anyone can buzz in, so we really want to see those fingers. Right. I will say this, if you buzz and get it wrong, you personally locked up. So, where do you find the 2 cures for the E-type infection? Dean, go on.
Okay, there's one in the attic, and I don't know the other one. Can we have half a point?
Why'd you buzz
Rob,
in?
you know?
No, incorrect. Batman.
There's one in the Marguerite's altar, does she call it? The D-Series head, and then the D-Series arm is in the secret room on the 2nd floor of the old house.
Incorrect.
George. The hand section is taken from where the little boy's locked up in. Yeah, it's not the attic. It's the room above his bedroom.
I was to become a god.
They're both in one place. They're in that box that you get, and you get. No, wait, because if you had 2, you'd give them to Zoe and Mia. Fuck it. I messed up. I thought it were 2 in that box that you use after you beat Jack, right? Or before Jack. There's a little box thing with a cure in it, and you've got to choose between Mia and Zoe. That's a cure, isn't it?
Romby.
Is it? Oh, this isn't the main game. This is bloody in Zoe. The Umbrella Soldier has the first one, and I can't remember where the second one is. I don't know. I can't remember where the second one is. I remember grabbing the first one off him. There's 2 in that.
Correct, yes, it's the Blue Umbrella Corps has 1, and the other is the paddle boat. In the paddle boat.
That was tough.
That was tough.
That was tough.
Nice question.
It was more of a trick question, wasn't it, really? It was to make you think of someone else. Oh, well done, Nick. It's a good one.
It wasn't mine. Right.
Well, there you go. There we are.
And finally, question number 5 was how many experiments did Simmons and Carla do before their C-virus work was complete? A very odd number. Romby.
Ugh, I have no idea. 627.
627. Batman.
12,225.
12,225. Okay, Mr. Spencer.
12.
12. 12. Okay. Stars Torrent.
Oh, I just went really low because I had no idea. I went 11.
Okay, fine. Sadly, it's 12,200.
Oh my god.
And 35.
Oh, you
So you are 10 out. That's unfortunate.
Maybe we ought to revise these numbered questions, like when it's like that, and just have the person.
I'm convinced when Vito sends these questions out, right, and he hears us like struggling over it, I bet he gets off to it.
Let's have a look at the final scores. This week's winner with 2 points is Batman. In second place, it Stars Tyrant with half. And joint third is Romby and Mr. Spencer with 0. So well done, everyone. So that concludes up. Whoa! What's that noise? Uh-oh.
That's our bonus non-canon corner round alarm going off. There we go. We have a bonus non-canon corner round. This question is a bonus round. It's worth 2 points. So, Romby, you can still win this.
Why'd you pick on me? Got the car manufacturers again.
I dread to think what this is going to
So
be.
this comes in from USS Command, and it's a beauty. Okay, so we want you to think very carefully. What is the name of the adult Biohazard game exclusively available in Japan? By adult, I mean pornographic.
George Trevor would have got that one.
Yeah, pornographic one. Like, is this official?
I don't think it's official.
Right, is it a doujinshi?
I don't know what that means.
Oh.
Clearly that's not the answer.
No. It's a form of erotic comic. That's what they called him in
Oh
Japan.
yeah, probably. I think it is. Yeah.
Because a friend knows his stuff about that thing.
Friend
Friend
stuff.
about that thing.
Yeah, because a friend reads them.
So, what is the name of the adult Biohazard game exclusively available in Japan? This is worth 2 points.
What's a game?
It's a game, you said. These are specific.
Well, I think it's an interactive game / comic thing.
So it's a flash animation.
Yes.
And this is only in Japan, and it's not official. So that could be a lot of things then, because there's a lot of fucking Resident Evil.
Yeah,
hentai
there'll be a
out there.
play on the name somewhere, won't it, I'd imagine.
So, has anyone got any answers? Romby?
I have no clue. It could be anything.
Have you got a funny play on name?
No.
Stars Tyrant, did you know it?
No, I'm even trying to come up with just some cheap innuendo or a good pun, but I can't think of any.
Oh, it's not too much like that. Mr. Spencer?
I'm trying to think, because it's got to be some kind of hentai, and I'm thinking it's. Can you come back to me while I think this over? Is that all right?
Yes.
That's why you've got enough time to use the old Google search engine.
Yeah.
Or check your comic book collection. Batman.
Umbrella Porks.
Oh, God.
Give him the point for that. That's amazing.
I had a good minute to think of that one, to be fair.
Mr. Spencer, any ideas?
Right. I don't know if I can top Umbrella Porks, because that was pretty good. I don't know the answer. I'm in a battleground on WoW. Don't care.
Okay. You can all Google it afterwards, but the answer is Biohazard 3 Horror in the Horny Tentacle Mansion.
Oh my fucking days.
Is that
That
real?
is real.
Is that honestly
That
real?
is real.
Is it canon?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Gotta be more canon than Umbrella Corps.
Finally, question number 4. Oh, what's that noise? Oh, it's the non-canon alarm. Oh my days, brace yourself.
No.
This question is even more non-canon than normal. It's so non-canon, it's meta. This comes in from Mako. This was something that was actually mentioned in a previous podcast, so were you paying attention? Which pop band would regularly have their music played at the Biohazard Cafe?
Ooh, why is it non-canon?
Because the Biohazard Cafe is not a canonical...
Oh, so I was miles
This
away.
is
I was
something
thinking
Alex
of-
told us, but now I can't even remember.
It is
I was thinking of
something.
the band that you get referenced in Outbreak. I wasn't thinking of the Biohazard Cafe.
Regularly had their music played at the Biohazard Cafe in Tokyo.
Oh
which,
my god!
Which band
Is
was...
this a real band?
Yes. Oh yeah, very much so.
I mean, that's beyond non-canon. That's
That's
just
what I
like,
said.
just ask us any. Ask us
That's
about.
not
I
even
know-
a Resident Evil
I
question.
know.
I mean,
Just ask us anything.
Not this
Like,
again, no.
Ask us about who just resigned from the cabinet.
I can't remember this being mentioned on a previous podcast.
What was it? Alex mentioned it in episode 64.
Oh, it would help if I was there.
I know.
No idea. Bloody Def Leppard, I don't know.
Def Leppard. George Trevor?
My initial answer was the Big E.
And it's
but I
completely...
misunderstood the question.
Yeah. Think of a band.
Well, it's going
Or
to
a
obviously
group.
be a Japanese band, and I don't know any J-pop bands really.
I'll give you a clue. It's not J-pop.
No.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
But it's obviously it has to be a Japanese. Presumably, it's bars in Japan. I don't know. I've no idea. Elton John.
Elton John. Okay. Start.
Well, until you said it's not a Japanese band, I was going to say Rise, who obviously did Gunshot
yes.
for
Yep.
Dead Aim. I have no Spice Girls, Nick.
Spice Girls. Interesting.
Haven't they
Romby?
retired?
Yeah, Sean just took what I was about to say because I remember Alex telling us about the people getting up to dance.
Got something in the pinch of my mind.
Was it Spice Girls?
No.
I'm like, was
Couldn't have
it
been.
Spice Girls? Was it Venga Boys? Was it something like that? that. It was so bad.
very,
Whatever
very
it was.
wow.
I'm going with I wanted to say Spice Girls, but because Sean's already said, I'm going to say Venga Boys.
If it's Venga Boys, I'll concede the whole series to Rob.
I can't remember.
Do you remember that?
I remember
Oh
Alex
my
telling us,
God.
and it's now bugging me because I remember the description, but I cannot remember which music he said. Oh, this is infuriating.
When you first asked that question, the first thing I jumped into my head was Spice Girls, and now you've said about Alec, I'm thinking as a memory just pinched the back of my brain and is informing that. And so, Nick, take it away.
Your memory serves you well. It is the Spice Girls.
What the hell?
I knew it was.
What is this series coming to?
The moment Rob said about Alex and him mentioned it, I'm thinking, fucking hell, I think that's where it's come from.
I shouldn't have said that. Damn it.
There we go. There we go. How are you coping there, Batman?
I mean, we've talked about the games straying too far from the origins. This Resident Evil quiz, if we're now getting Spice Girls as the correct answer, I mean, it's time to quit, isn't it?
It was 7, episode 7. Would you believe it? So no points to anyone.
You were talking Res 6 at episode 7.
Apparently so.
No.
Yeah, let's have a look. Episode 7.
Bollocks.
The Biohazard 6.
Bloody hell. God, there's been a lot of podcasts post 6, isn't there?
Let's have a look. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Project Umbrella podcast, where our staff members regularly hit the bottle after witnessing a massacre of their team. Any previews of our product
Oh no! Oh no, it's the wrong one!
He was wrong!
I was right. Oh, well, you're still wrong. It must have been episode 8.
Jesus Christ, you don't know anything.
No way. Resident Evil 6 feedback. I was involved since then, and I didn't come on board until about episode 14.
Shit a brick. That's terrible.
He doesn't even know the general knowledge stuff.
Yeah, that is.
Why is this man the quizmaster?
Nick.
Thank God
Why
we're
is it the
retiring.
Oh.
Oh, how done.
Yeah.
What the fuck was that?
What was that?
Someone got porn on in the background.
Who was that?
It was not me, it was you, Nick.
That wasn't me.
Nick, you dirty bastard.
That was not me.
I thought John was making I thought that was John making a joke about. What the fuck was that?
That was John. That was not me.
That was you, John.
No, I thought you purposely did that because of the.
I heard it coming from your picture. It was
You're watching porn. No wonder you're not getting the questions right.
I wasn't me. It was George Trevor. I saw his
Wasn't
picture
me.
light-
It wasn't me.
I saw your picture light up. Don't lie. I saw it
I'm
light up.
sad.
I heard it from you.
Oh dear. So on that note, I will bid you all farewell. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast. Yeah, it's goodbye from me, Neptune.
Goodbye from me, Batman.
Goodbye from me, Tyrant. Stars Tyrant. And it's goodbye from me, Ark.
Vincent, it's your mother. It's goodbye from me too. Stop doing those terrible podcasts and just come home.
Goodbye from me, George Trevor.
Goodbye from me, Romby.
And it's goodbye from me, Mr. Spencer.
One final word from me whilst we listen to this amazing tune from Resident Evil 3 Meg. I'd like to personally thank everyone who has ever listened to our podcast, commented, and generally been involved with it. We've had such an amazing time over the past 10 years, whether you've sent in a question for the quiz or an MP3 review for one of the games or films. It means the absolute world to us that so many people listen to our podcast and have supported us for the past 10 years. A special shout out as well to our patrons who've been amazing. This has been a remarkable journey for the past 10 years, and we just hope as the Resident Evil series continues to evolve, we will do so as well, and you can look forward to a stellar lineup of podcasts for the next 12 months at least. So thank you again for listening, and let's enjoy this track.
The Resident Evil Podcast.